Good morning all of you. I am Tanushri Garai from Civil Engineering branch. So in the last class we discussed about various kinds of failure in case of bolted connection as shear failure, bearing failure, bearing failure in plate bolt, tension failure, shear failure in plate and block failure. And today we will discuss about another kind of connection which is welded connection. So you know about the welded connection very well, that the welded connection is the connection in between two things with a melting of metals and merge the two plates or two kinds of structure into a single structure. So, first of all, you need to know what do we mean by welded connection, how it will form, what are the stages and what are the zones, and why it is superior than the bolting connection. So, first of all, the development of the welding connection technology is established in 1940s has considerably reduced the rivet joint application. That means to reduce the connection like riveted joint, we need to establish another type of connection which is more preferable, which is more economical as compared to riveted joint. So, next thing is welded is the method of locally melting the metals, that may be your sheets or plates, and overlapping or butting with intensive heating along with a filler material or metal or without it, and allowing cooling them to form a coherent mass, thus creating a joint. And after that, a typical weld showing various zones of weld is shown in the figure, that means in this figure. Such joints can be created to make structures, boilers, pressure vessels, etc. and are more conveniently made in steel. So you can see this is a figure and this portion is one structure or one plate section and this portion is another plate section. Okay, and in between this the welding is provided, and the square section, it is the zone of heat affected zone. That means while we provide welded connection, we need the spray of heat by which we can merge the metal which is in liquid form and merge it into the two separate things to make it a single structure. So this curved section, you can say this curved section is known as your face of the weld, and then from this portion to this portion, this is known as your weld metal zone. That means we provide the cooling of the metal, that means the metal which need for the weld connection we provide here from this point to this point. So it is known as your weld metal zone. And from this portion to this portion, you can see the square type of section, it is known as your heat affected zone. That means in that portion we provide the heat for the good joint, and the total portion, that means the combination of the weld metal zone and heat affected zone is in total is known as your weld zone. And another thing is, you can see this small portion, that means the portion from the weld to the end of the weld. that means the side of the portion in which the weld is provided, or you can see the merge of the weld to the plate section is known as your fusion zone. Okay, so this is all about the various zones of a typical weld section. Then come to another point, which is the progress has been made in welding several types of steels, but large structure size may impede the use of automatic techniques and heat treatment, which becomes necessary in some cases. And welded shapes were made in large size and large number during Second World, and failures of many of them spotted research effort to make welding a better technology. So next one is your, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the welded connection? So first thing is your, the cross-sectional area of the welded members is effective since the welding process does not involve drilling holes. So you know that very well, in case of bolting or riveted kind of connection, we need to make a hole for the inserting of the bolt into the plate holes. But in case of welded connection, there is no provision of making a hole or drilling a hole on the plate section. So your gross section of the area is much more or much better than the riveted kind of connection. So it is the good advantages of the welded connection. And next one is your, welded structures are comparatively lighter than the corresponding riveted structure. That is, whenever you provide a welded connection in between two things, so the amount of metal which you require for making a weld, it is very minimum. But in case of bolted connection, by providing the bolts which is much heavier, so that it makes the self weight of the whole structure is more, which is a very disadvantageous, a big disadvantages for the bolted connection. But in case of welded connection, it is much more lighter than the bolted connection structure. Then next one is your, a welded joint has a greater strength, sometimes equal to the strength of the parent metal itself. Then repairs and further new connections can be done more easily than the riveting. That means whenever there is a problem in case of welding connection, so it is reflected as a crack or detachment in the welded connection. So we can easily feel it, we can easily repair it with a minimum cost. So as compared to the bolted connection, the repairing of the welded connection is very quick and very economic. The next one is your, welded joints provide rigidity, leads to smaller bending moment than corresponding riveted member. So in case of welded joint, a structure gives a small bending moment instead of riveted joint. Then welded joints are economical due to riveted joint due to low maintenance cost. That means in case of welded connection, there is no need to inspection. That means in case of bolted connection, we need to inspect that area or that structure twice in a week for the good maintenance. But in case of welded connection, we need to inspect at least twice in a week. So the maintenance cost of the riveted joint is more, but in case of welded joint, the maintenance cost is very minimum. The next one is your, members of such shapes that afford difficulty for riveting that can be more easily welded. So you can provide any kind of shapes and it can be jointed by welded connection. But in case of bolted connection, we should take care about the pitch distance, edge distance in a minimum or in a preferable distance. Then we can provide a bolting. But in case of welding connection, there is no provision of this kind of distance. We can provide any kind of welded connection in various kinds of shapes. Then a welded structure has a better finish and appearance than the corresponding rivet structure. So it can give architectural or according to the design purpose, it giving a pleasant look for the structure. Then connecting angles, gusset plates, splicing plates can be minimized. Then steel bars in reinforced concrete structure may be welded easily so that lapping of the bars may be avoided. The next advantages is it is possible to weld it at any point at any part of structure, but riveting will always require enough clearance. As I told that in case of riveting joint, we should be very much taken care about the pitch distance, edge distance. So the distance should be properly provided in case of plate section while we provide a bolting connection. But in case of weld connection, we don't need to provide any kind of distance like pitch or edge. So it is more efficient for the welded connection. The next one is the process of welding does not involve great noise compared to the noise produced in the riveting process. So you know that in case of riveting process, we need a bolt and knot, and by giving a moment to the knot by the slide wrench, pliers or wrenches, it provides unpleasant noise. But in case of welding connection, the creation or the creating of the noise is very much minimum in compared to the riveting or bolting connection. So today this much. We will discuss the disadvantages of the welded connection and types of the welded connection in the next class. So thank you so much.